And welcome to the Thrive for Life Facebook Live. I'm your host, Dr. Alicia Shelley. This is your first time tuning into our Facebook Lives. I am a board certified internal medicine, obesity medicine physician. I practice outside of Atlanta and Douglasville, Georgia. I also am the host of the Back on Track Overcoming Weight Regain podcast, where we talk about how to overcome weight regain. And if you're not quite sure exactly what weight regain is, it's basically when you lose weight and then regain it back. And I know personally, I've experienced that where you just go up and down with your weight. And so I'm here to kind of help you get on track with that. Also, just to kind of help for those who are so busy and it just seems daunting to try to start a weight loss program. That's what I do. And so with our Thrive for Life, we do offer an 8-week online program where it helps people to kind of kickstart their weight loss journey and just kind of helping you get on track and having that foundation as you continue with your weight loss. So go online to thriveforlifeprogram.com for more information. We'll be looking forward to our next cohort. You can get on the waiting list. All right, without further ado, today we're going to be talking about the ABCs of intermittent fasting. So I've gotten a lot of questions for people asking about intermittent fasting after we aired our podcast on last week, where we interviewed Gwendolyn Turner, who actually wrote a book about intermittent fasting. So I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about intermittent fasting and the benefits and all the things you need to know if this is something you wanted to try. So first, let's start with what is intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting is, I'm going to say, just different than what we normally been taught. Usually people tell you to eat 5 small meals. Get your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner, and 2 small snacks. However, intermittent fasting is a way where you can restrict how many calories you eat by either restricting them to the 16.8, where you for 16 hours you're not eating anything, and for the 8 hours you're eating something, which is basically smaller portions of what you normally eat. Or if you're doing a 24-hour fast where all of a sudden you're not eating meals for 24 hours and then you eat the rest of the days. So we're going to go in more detail exactly what it is, but it's basically you're constricting the amount of food you're eating to a specific time. All righty. Before we continue, let's talk about what are the benefits of intermittent fasting. Well, because you're not eating all the time, you have actually lower insulin levels. It helps improve your focus. It helps with supporting your heart health as well. Also, it helps with digestion because your gut is not working overtime all the time to digest. So it has certain times that it digests, and so when it does it more efficiently. It helps fight inflammation by reducing the amount of sugar that's in your body, the amount of carbs. It helps reduce your inflammation. It helps improve cholesterol. And then also, it actually helps with weight loss because you're not eating, you're restricting your calories. So these are just a couple of health benefits from intermittent fasting. Now, let's talk about the types of intermittent fasting. So I mentioned this before. You have the 16.8 or .8 fasting method. That means when you actually fast for 16 hours and then you eat for 8 hours. So a lot of times this is helpful for people who don't really particularly care for breakfast and tend to eat already after lunch. So you'll probably eat lunch, but then you'll stop eating by 8. So that's another way how to do it. Also, you have your 20-by-4 fasting method where you fast for 20 hours, but only eat for 4 hours. And then you have your 5-2 fasting diet where you, for 2 days, 2 non-consecutive days, you fast, and then 5 days you eat regularly. And then you have your 24-hour fast where you choose which days you won't eat the 24-hour period, but then you eat the other days. And then your 36-hour fast is where you're not eating for 36 hours. So there's many ways on how you can do the intermittent fasting. It just depends what works for you and what works for your schedule. But the most popular method is the 16-by-8 method. And so like I said before, the 16-8 method is when you are fasting for 16 hours. Now, when you're fasting, it doesn't mean you don't eat anything. You actually can drink beverages. You can drink water, you can drink black coffee, you can drink tea, but you're not adding milk, you're not adding creamer, you're not adding any type of sugar. So these are zero calorie beverages that you're drinking throughout the fasting period. But then when you do start to eat, you actually will eat a healthy diet, but you're not really worried about the amount of calories you're eating during that time. That does not mean that you go on a splurge, that you start eating everything during those 8 hours. No, no, no. You still have your lunch meal, your dinner meal, but you stop eating by 8 or whatever time you set. So here's a typical day on the 16.8. So for this particular day, the person will start off a day with black coffee. Like I said, no sugar, no milk, only 0-calorie drinks during the fasting period. But then at 12, they'll break their fast with a healthy lunch with vegetables, proteins, and you can have a little bit of a starch there too. Also, you can have a midday snack if you get hungry, where it may be like a yogurt with berries, or you may have like a small snack. And then for dinner, you will eat another healthy meal where you have your protein, your veggies, and then you stop by 8 o'clock. And then you start the fasting all over again. Now, with the 24-hour fasting, like I mentioned before, you would eat normally on one day, and then the next day would be your 24-hour fast. Or you can have where you allow yourself some extra calories, where you may eat 100 calories or a few hundred, 200 to 300 calories during that time. But then you're also drinking fluids or drinking water, 0-calorie beverages. And then the next day you eat normally, and then the next day you eat the 24-hour fast. So you kind of go back and forth through this. With the 5 but 2 diet, basically you will choose 2 days out the week that's non-consecutive where you will fast. But you can decrease it by 500 calories. So for women, 500 calories, for men, 600 calories. So you're really restricting how much you eat on those 2 days, but then the other days you eat normally. Once again, when I say eating normally, it's still a healthy diet. So you're not necessarily overeating, going to fast food during this time, or binge eating. But what you're doing is that you're eating still healthy meals on the days that you normally eat. Now, let's talk about how to get started. Well, number one, you got to choose a plan that works better for you. Not everyone can do the 24-hour fasting. It may not work with your time, may not be working with your job. So it's better to find what works for you. I know 16-8 is actually very healthy because every day you're eating something, but you're just restricting what times that you eat. And for people who aren't, or don't really enjoy breakfast, then this may be for you, where you kind of start eating at lunch and then you stop eating by 8 o'clock. Also, you may want, the other thing I would say is plan out what you plan to eat. Definitely during the feasting and fasting periods. Have what you're going to eat, have it outlined, have the meal prep. Because a lot of times when we don't prep, it's hard. Sometimes we got a busy day at work. It's so hard for us to kind of like grab something and go. And we may go and eat fast food because that's what's available. We may have the energy to cook. So it's better that you kind of write out what you plan to eat, have your meal prep ready to go so that you can just be able to grab and go and not have to think about it. Sometimes we don't want to think about what's the next meal that we have to cook for others. Also, make sure you know what you plan to do for when you're fasting. Like, how much water are you going to be drinking? Are you going to do black coffee, tea, whatever it is? Make sure you have that available. Next, go shopping. So a lot of times half the battle is we don't have, we need to get the food in the refrigerator or in our pantry so we know what we're doing. And so make sure you go shopping. And then the last thing is to start. That's the hardest part. Set a date when you plan to do it and do it. Because sometimes we think about a lot of stuff. We're like, this would be great, but we don't implement it or start. So definitely starting is important. So most importantly, I hope this ABCs of intermittent fasting was helpful for you. Feel free to leave any comments that you have in the comments or post under the post. I'd be happy to answer them for you. And then if you're also looking for a program to help kickstart your weight loss, join us for the Thrive for Life 8-week online program. And you can go to thriveforlifeprogram.com for more information. All right. I look forward to you next Monday for our next Facebook Live. And I hope you have a wonderful day.